Yeah. No, maybe out there, maybe I might turn to 20 seconds. Which was good, maybe the Hullets, Albert, and Brian, them three. I know, cheer productivity.
I'll tell you this right quick. We talked to a lady up at Walmart last week. My wife found she was getting broken. We got up this lady was in Latin and she was Romanian.
Oh, Romania.
I'm telling you, she sounds just like she
Oh, yeah. Eastern Europe.
Yeah. I mean, the same accent.
Oh, yeah. That's how we sound. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk to her all day. She was a nice person.
Well, Ukraine borders with Romania on the west, so we're neighbors.
Well, that's what I thought about. I thought about you.
What Walmart? Where in Gaston?
No, in Denver.
In Denver? Oh.
You ever been there?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's getting crowded. It's like the
Oh,
Lowe's, Walmart.
right.
Over there. Second week. You know, I keep asking my wife, she don't go out, but you go to the gas shop, all the fact, you see, and I see, everybody's on the fact, everybody's out today. Wait. Citizens come.
Over here?
Yes.
Yeah, we can add it. Yeah. Just say, say it in the comments after. Six oh four.
First month.
I spoke to him this morning, and he said he was coming. He said it's traffic. I don't know. He got stuck.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he might try to
On Zoom,
yeah.
we have Kyle Crow. He is he works with Kent Olson. I don't see him. He was supposed to join us on Zoom, but I don't know if he's. Is he on call? Oh, so he may not even be. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here. Hamburger. You don't need a laptop, right?
No,
It's really not big business.
Oh, citizen comments? Yes, it should be like a separate item. So
Yes,
it
so-
should be item, not the five. And then
Sorry, this.
Your Monday's been like everyone else, and today we can understand.
South Charlotte, came from South Charlotte, and it's just completely backed out. I gave myself even 45 minutes to travel.
Sometimes that doesn't work.
No, I'm so sorry, sir.
We actually. It's probably a little bit.
But I can breathe a little bit. I can breathe a little bit.
Yeah, you're
So we're just gonna put
I think people should like the out.
I think so, yeah.
It's rare, back in the day, it probably everybody been impatient. It's good. So I don't know whether you go try to. Well, good news is you still have four. Don't let anybody get up and leave here to me. You block Bud in on this side.
Okay, block.
Pre-COVID, it makes sense. You always have them move the whole thing out. You have to move the whole thing out. I'm gonna let you talk, Doug.
You said you.
Yes, I tried to.
Okay.
Am I gonna be? I don't have to. I can go over there and shit.
Is that okay?
Yes, I just need to get my. The only time I need to be over here is when we do
The
the
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, unless I can get you to do the advanced slides for me.
Call meeting to order. Please rise. Council your names, please. Invocation all
Oh, as we come to the holy throne of grace, we want to just slow down and just look to the throne of grace for where you are and concentrate on you for tonight's service. God, as we go through the town of Stanley's business with the public, I pray that the Holy Spirit will be with us through this meeting. We pray that you'd forgive us for what we failed. In His name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item D, we're going to make an addition to tonight's agenda. We're going to add a special presentation, item 3, Mr. Kent Olson with Development Solutions Group LLC. And then we are going to add under item 5, and push the rest of the items down for citizens' comments. Item 5, we have the citizens' comments. I got a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Carried. Item 2, I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular council meeting on March 1st, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Got a second? Second. All in favor? Carried. Move on to special presentations. Item A, Millwoods project on Green Road.
Well, good evening.
As they're will you be moving it? I'll just point to you in a minute. Hello, my name is Mike Zimke. I'm here this evening to discuss 5161 Green Road, Millhaven community. And I'm also joined by Kingbridge Construction, Scott Morrison this evening. And what we'd like to discuss is this parcel of land here, roughly about 28 acres. Our goal with that property is to develop it into single-family residential homes. We are not asking for a rezoning. We are not asking for any density changes. What we are asking for tonight is help with connectivity to water and sewer. So that's what brings us here this evening. Our proposal is to have between 40 and 42 sites on the property, which those would be roughly anywhere between 3/4 of an acre to about an acre to an acre and a quarter. We will be the quality of materials that we're going to be using. You're going to be using fiber cement, also known as hardy board. We will also have some brick siding on these properties. Stone accents, steel concrete countertops, custom cabinetry that I want to point out that it is milled and developed here in Stanley, just up down the road in Mariposa by Mr. Morrison, who is a resident. So those will be built here locally. And the price point we're going to be targeting is the $375,000 to $400,000 resale market. So this is a layout of what we're thinking for the community. It currently fits in the R20 zoning as you see it. A couple of examples of the kind of quality of product that we will be bringing to this community are here. That just shows you some of the exterior, some of the qualities you see in the lot. That's something that we would like to do, like to keep trees, have some privacy, some natural scapes. And this is just some of the interior stuff. All these things would come within that same price point that we are looking to build. It's really a lot more of a custom property than it is any type of a spec or track built home. So that is our goal. Why we're asking you to partner, we feel that this property was annexed, into the city limits, 10 to 12 years ago. The current owner has been paying, city taxes or town taxes, on that property for the last 10 to 12 years, and not receiving any of the services from that. And so she has an opportunity now to sell the property and, move on, from this investment. It would bring a lot more tax value, property tax value to the town. Just at an estimate standpoint, we feel like it's going to cost somewhere between $700,000 and $750,000 to run the water and sewer where it's currently at to this property. And so, based on very conservative tax value, $3,200 a year for 42 homes will get you about $134,000 back annually in tax revenue, which would get that investment paid back in less than 6 years, which we feel is a pretty strong approach. We also have some monthly water and sewer revenue from the monthly bills that would come in. And again, we're not asking for rezoning. We're keeping it, in a lower density type of project. And we feel this is a great opportunity for the town to get away from the larger, kind of more track built type style of homes and provides a quality product for the town of Stanley as they grow. This is just an example of where it's currently located by the middle school. And, this is not exact, obviously, you can tell on the drawing, but where we need to be run to get to our property. An ancillary benefit too is there is the Brookwood community across the street that if there's water sewer there, you could potentially bring that into the town limits and service that community and also gain more tax revenue. So that is the long and short of it, and appreciate your time.
So you estimated the town's cost would be $750,000.
Yes, sir.
How many homes, approximately do you think will be in there?
Between 40 and 42.
So, would you pull that map back up, it reflects the location of Green Road, because I want the council to make sure they have, I think most of you are familiar with that property, but as you can see, the closest access to water and sewer from that location is near the location of either the top of the road to Talon, please correct me if I'm wrong, the state. So you've got from that location all the way out to this satellite annexed property. where there is no water and sewer service maintained by the town. So this is a little bit more of a unique situation than any development that I've been a part of since I've been manager. So that was not anything that we could negotiate or discuss beyond what we're allowed to do at staff level. And I'll be glad to answer questions if you have any of them.
Question, yes? How long will it take to run the infrastructure?
I'm not sure with the construction industry like it is right now, or who they would get to do the work, but basically we weren't trying to put the council on the spot to make any final decision, but just some direction to allow staff to discuss this further and potential grant situation.
Yeah, I would recommend that.
Grants, if it makes sense with what we bring back to you.
Is council okay with that? That's good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So item B, Mr. Eddie McGinnis. Or yours, sir.
All right, thank you. As the old principal, I should do a better job checking what time things start. I had 7 o'clock down and I rode by and saw all these cars here. I come in shorts and a t-shirt, so forgive me. I do have some of our better dressed board members that are here. Vince Wilbanks is our board chairman. Brad Jonas is a member of our board. Pastors dress alike, so Chad Parker is here, he's our associate pastor in t-shirts and shorts. So anyway, we'll be short with this presentation, but the church, the Community Pentecostal Center, is interested in purchasing the old water plant property. I know at your last board meeting, we had made a bid offer. You had put it up for bid. We were the only ones to make a bid, and the bid was at $5,000. But at the meeting, the instructions were given to town manager Heath Jenkins to negotiate possibly $10,000 for that project. For the church, the property has been vacant for many years, and we could use it. The demolition, the old water plant itself, may run up to $80,000. And that's from a verbal bid that we had gotten from George Colbert, who has demolished several buildings there for the town of McAdenville. So again, we feel like we really are taking a liability off of your hands, and we are accepting a liability on our part. So, as far as the church and the community, and this is no different than, say, Texas Baptist or Stanley Pentecostal or any other church that is represented in this room. So I'm not saying this to say that we do something above what other churches in this community does. But just for example, in the last year, what the church has done, we do a barbecue every year in Gene Walker's honor. And we sold 1,902 plates this past month of March. We took $1 a plate and gave $1,902 to Crisis Pregnancy Center in Gastonia. There's a picture there at the bottom of our associate pastor, Buddy Queen, making a presentation to Aaron Ansel Overby over there at the facility there. So we felt like that was a good day. The King's Daughters Ministry is something we support here in the town. On Mother's Day, we will hand out 60 canning jars that we'll ask our congregation to fill in between now and Father's Day with their silver loose change. And we expect to collect, as we did last year, some $2,400 in loose change to give to the King's Daughters Ministry And I know Cheryl Dorsey has always been helpful with that. The appeal was made to the United Churches of Stanley back in the summertime, and we contributed $1,000 to the Stanley Police Department. And the total of what the United Churches, we weren't the only church that contributed to that. We support our police department, as I know you do also. The Stanley Ancestry Cemetery Fund, we contribute $1,000 each year to that fund. Grew up in this community, I'm a part of this community, they'll bury me in this community, although I have a plot down on 27 on down the road. But it is important to keep that place looking nice, and we contribute every year $1,000 to that ancestry fund. Food bank locally, we throw in $5,000 each year for at least 10 to 12 families we help out every month. And we spend $5,000 on that. Local and foreign missions, along with the Hope for the Homeless that we do monthly, we spend $7,500 a year. We've gone to Nicaragua, we've gone to Guatemala, we've gone to Africa, different places, but that we set aside each year. Emergency relief fund, rent, power bill, water bill, we do $5,000. Recently, I think the town had a request from a mother who had children, may have been in the Stanley town, well, anyway, here in Stanley. Other churches helped out. I know Stanley Pentecostal did, I know the Methodist Church did, but we're there to help in those emergency situations, and we dedicate $5,000 a year to do that. Every year, the last Saturday or the fourth Saturday in September, we do the JJ 5K in honor of Jerica J. Hellerman. We give a $2,000 scholarship to a senior at East Gaston. This is our 5th year of doing it. So that's $10,000 total so far. We made a 20-year commitment to do that. Community revival every year, we put $1,000 in to see that happen. We adopt a school every year, $800. We are part of the Stanley Christmas Parade. And, we were the founding, visionary for the community public charter school. I had 40 members of the church give $1,000 each, 40,000 total to get it off the ground. Of course, it cost me having to go up in an airplane 10,000 feet and jump out of that airplane. But again, over the last 12 to 24 months, we've invested over $68,000 in this community. And I'm asking the board, instead of upping the price another $5,000, let us invest that $5,000 in this community. Hey, if you'll sell it to us for $1, we'll invest $10,000 in the community, and I'm sure the fire department and the police department and anything else that you might have a need of here in Stanley would not mind doing that. But that's our appeal to you for today. So if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer that.
I'd sort of like to know, I assume you're gonna put some more trailers or what have you in this property?
It's a possibility. We're about outgrown that facility. We're meeting with the town manager and the police chief tomorrow. It's the second meeting that we've called. We've asked them, and they've obliged us. Next year, we'll add another 150 students, and we'll pull in another 6 modular unit. That's why we're working with them to make sure that we limit the amount of complaints y'all get from traffic, particularly. I don't think you get too many more complaints other than that. But anyway, we're hoping to build a brand new facility the following year. There is a possibility we may have to lease that property for $1 for that next year to bring in 6 more additional units. We don't want to because, again, of the traffic situation. We're hoping that we can move quickly and be in a brand new facility for the school year 22-23 so that we can eliminate some of that. We've outgrown even our vision of what we thought it would be. So
I was also wondering about the block that you've got vacant and what your plans there are.
yeah, the initial thought was to put the charter school right there. And, you know, we're at 350 students now. Next year we'll be at 500. When we add the 8th grade in there, we'll be at 675. And we'll cap it off at 800 when it gets there. And I don't think the road and the area and the parking can handle that size of a school building. You need about 40 acres of land to do something that big. But the community has been receptive to it. You know, we worked hard, and again, it was investment of the church, to do something like that. As we stated in our meetings, we are not against. You know, I spent 30 years in public education, and we believe in public education. Charter school is a public school, but I think it makes us all better. You know, it makes all of us better because competition's good. You know, I wore shorts and coached Stephen Tuckies, and that's why they don't have any hair left. But yeah, I think competition makes us all better.
Well, I ask these questions coming up to this right here. The more you grow, the more traffic they're going to be.
Yeah.
And I already know Valley Street's choked up bad because I have to walk that way.
We walk in every morning, yeah.
So I see. And so add additionally to that, and it looks like it's going to be a problem.
Well, hopefully with this piece of property, we can eliminate some of the traffic with some parking in that area, just to help, like we do in that vacant lot right now on Mooney Road, that area there. We do not want to cause a problem. It can result, we have worked extremely hard to keep traffic off of Mooney Road. Because if you get a car passing 3 or 4 cars to try to get in a hurry to get to work, you're putting somebody's life in danger. That's why we want to work with the town manager and the police chief to be sure that we don't do anything that's going to be harmful to. Worst day in my life is to pick up the newspaper and have my picture on the front page because child got hit by a car or some family was devastated by it.
Which all of my questions, not negative. I appreciate what you're doing.
No. We appreciate your support, the town support. We're just looking for a good deal right now. We're not a big church. I mean, we're we got good people, we got giving people, but we're not a big church. I mean, we don't. I could take anybody that doesn't have a membership in any church. I'll take whoever we got there. But yeah, at the same time, we feel like God's called us to invest in the community that He's planted us in. And just like First Assembly and all these other churches that are represented, you do the same thing. But it's a privilege to be a part of that in ministry.
By the way, I want to say it's very commendable.
Well,
Your church be doing.
very proud. Well, you don't use pride when you're talking about church, but I'm very proud of the folks that are part of the community Pentecost.
When you think that you're gonna be too large for that area, where do you plan to move the school to?
We've looked at a couple of locations.
Will you still remain within the city limits?
Well, that's what we hope to do. We don't want to, anytime you do something and you step out on faith, there's gonna be some opposition against it. Dallas has asked us to come, Mount Holly has asked us to come, but we want to stay. I'm staying. That's where I, have my roots, and I want to stay here. We're looking at some property again Friday. We've looked at property at Kent, Sean, and shown us. We're excited about the opportunity to expand.
Any other questions from council?
Now, is there a time that we will know what type of prices on this property?
I think, I spoke to the council about this. I think we want to discuss a little bit further. Councilman Ingold, do you have any further questions? You joining us via Zoom?
Yeah, I understand that you're trying to grow. But I guess my take on it is I look at your school being a business and your church being a nonprofit kind of in two different, I guess, categories there. I understand that you want to buy the property and grow the school. But I also understand that the town sitting on land is not necessarily a liability for us because there's not going to be any more land made. Once we get rid of that property, it's gone out of our hands forever. So I would like a little more time to discuss it with the council and come up with a solid price for you.
As far as the church board, our church board, and again, it's the church that is buying the property, it's not the school. You know, I envision the school being away from that property, you know, after another year, that's our hope. But our church board has voted not to expend more than $5,000 on the property. We feel like we have invested enough in the community that we would deem it, you know, to be an appropriate price, considering, again, we don't know what the total cost would be if we did have to go in, you know, do some environmental things that could, we're accepting that risk is what we're doing. You know? And again, this was just a verbal bid on the demolition, but I don't see anybody tearing that place down for less than that myself. But, you know, it would be advantageous to us for an answer quickly. And then if the answer is no, then as the preacher would say, that's God's will. So we'll be okay with that too.
Thank you, Pastor. We'll discuss it. I feel confident we can probably have an answer back before the next council meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Ken Olson with Development Solutions Group LLC.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. For y'all certified with any which have fun. I did get the fortunate opportunity to work with Mr. McGinnis, as he said, on the site that we're speaking of tonight, at Mariposa Black Snake, about the possibility, and that's the reason we were deferred. And we were a little bit unfair with his group because of our timeline. Time is such an important factor in our development business. Windows of opportunity, contracts, we have a patient selling now, but we just couldn't get it worked out. And I wish that we could have, but you did touch like, give me the thoughts, and I'd like to go on record as we would contribute $2,500 to try to help you get that location.
Very nice.
And we'd like to do that, so we'll try and figure that out, but you'll have to write that check, but that'd be great. Because, we recognize the good work that they do in the community. My wife, grew up in a community out there in the Charlotte area since 1983. And LaShawn grew up here. Her mom lives over at Jackson Park, and have really gotten to know and respect that LaShawn have done here in this beautiful town, and love to be a small part of it. Our small part of it is we're our proposed neighborhood, touching both Black Snake next to the park, Harper Park there. That would bring a product of homes, the townhomes that are currently not available, and we well received when we went to planning. We did go to planning at the end of the year, and we were turned down 2. We didn't get real specific on why we were turned down, but the comments about lot sizes on the single family portion brought up quite a bit. So I only assumed that was some of the concerns. We did get very positive feedback in so much as bringing the townhome product, something that the town does not have now, which would be an asset. And then also, we're not crossing the creek. We're going to stay out of the creek, not get involved with any environmental involvement with that. Although we do want to have walking trails connecting everything to the park. So, but we still took it to heart, and we went back to the drawing board, and we increased the lot sizes from 60-foot potential wide at the street to 80-foot, a pretty substantial increase. It lowered our unit count. We lowered our unit counts overall, we lowered our unit counts by 24 units, taking away 12 on the townhome side, 12 on the single family side. But going with the large, and in today's world, that 80-foot wide lot is large, believe it or not. I grew up in a ranch house and it had 80, probably 85-foot wide lot. And that was the norm then, but as we come to growth has changed a lot. A lot of municipalities we go to, they want to see smaller lots and more open space. It has to do with impervious and how much are you affecting the environment. So this was a little bit of a different case here when we went to the 80-foot lots. A lot of home buyers can't or are unwilling to pay the higher prices associated with the larger lots. But we respected what the information, the feedback that we were getting. We didn't want another Arbordale, and I respect that. The best communities, the best cities, they're the ones that have a wide variety of housing product, a variety of builders, a variety of type of homes. And we're not interested in just a quick buck. We've been involved with over 4,000 lots in the Charlotte area. I'm proud of every subdivision. I take my kids and my grandkids someday there and be proud of them all. And the same would be the case here. So we went back to the drawing boards, went and did the larger lots. We lost 2 potential builders when we went larger, but that's okay. We think that there's still enough demand. And the prices going up as they are. We stopped in again at Arbordale because I know that's on everybody's mind. My mother-in-law lives across the street from there. When I wrote you all in the emails back in December, on December 17th, there was a 30+ person wait list. Today, as recently as 2 hours ago, we were just instructed by the salesperson on site that that is now 65 people. So occasionally in my business, we do get folks come out and vote against it. You'll get 5 or 6 phone calls, maybe more, maybe less. And you don't get a lot of people in support. That's how people show support. They line up to buy it and they want to be here. So today there's 65 folks there. Back in December, their starting price point was $244,000. Today it's $315,000. And you probably have a tough time getting out of this at $315,000. You know how they work that stuff. By the time you get you'd like to have a place for your paper towels hanging on, and you'd like to, they're going to charge you for all that stuff. So you're probably now going to be closer to the mid 300s in a development, and I would say this is true this year, a cookie cutter development. That's probably something a lot of people look at. There's a place for it. I don't disrespect it. And going back to my point about the need of variety, we all want to have $400,000, $500,000 houses. And what they're proposing is beautiful, and there's a place for that. But we can't have that everywhere. It's just, unfortunately, we're not all fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I'm sure it's not your intent to not have enough new housing options to cover all the bases. When I say all the bases, most importantly, what we find is when we were fighting the impact fee at Fort Mill, is the very people, these actions that are, some of the municipalities take, bigger lots requiring certain square footage, requiring a lot of materials, price is higher, then they throw an impact fee on top of it. The very people that serve the community are priced out of the community. So it's a travesty when the folks that serve the community are not afforded the opportunity to buy a new home. It's not, I feel strongly about this. It's not fair to tell the firemen, kids, teachers, you're going to have to look at a house that was built in 1965 based on what you can afford to pay because these new homes are so high. So it's a tough balance to try to get the variety. There's a place for these gentlemen, what they're proposing. There's a place for truth. Could have been designed a little bit better, absolutely. It's not hard just to say, I don't want no houses, build 3 houses deep. I want you to go off the road. Those are small things make a big difference. In our case, what we're trying to do is find that equilibrium. So by going to the 80-foot lot, I've committed to doing the hardboard, cement fiber exteriors as depicted in the pictures there. And that's also the case on the townhomes. And those combined with the rising prices, I would say that by the time that things keep tracking the way they're tracking now, I mean, they're talking here, they're 5,000 per month increases over there at Armourdale. The cost of materials is just skyrocketing right now. I would venture by the time these first houses were sold, and we were fortunate to be approved, they would well be at the 300s. It's, and you have some control over that, respect to the lot sizes and the exterior materials that we commit to. But I certainly won't be a drain on the community. They'll be a nice asset and they'll fit in well. We just can't get too expensive because we have to be understanding that we're pioneering in this part of town. I'm excited to be bringing some growth to the north side of town. Sean went to every storekeeper that would let her in, and we gave it to Ms. Christian, the list of all the folks who have been supportive. The town merchants have been through a lot with COVID and with retail. Retail needs rooftops to support. A vibrant downtown needs rooftops to be successful. And we had overwhelming support for that, for our subdivision. And so I think that it would be a great addition to the side of town that could use some attention. Knowing that they're going to have a tougher time selling against the folks that are closer to I-85. So if we ask them to go too much higher, we don't want to have a half-done development in 2009 that leads this high either. So I think we've struck that balance. I hope that we have. And I'm here to answer any questions that I could. Overall, we are 135 units, 86 single-family homes, and 49 townhomes.
How many square feet of townhomes?
The townhomes will average about 2,000 square feet. We want to put a lot of them with the master on the main floor. We find a lot of places that we go to, the folks don't want to leave their community, but they don't want the maintenance associated with the single family home they've had for a long time. And usually they're getting pushing 60 or over 60, and they don't want to go downstairs.
Will all the townhomes have garages, or some will, some won't?
They'll all have garages,
1 or 2 car?
mostly one car, so we get more heat. It's a trade-off between less heat, especially all have one car. End units sometimes might have 2 cars.
What about the homes? Will those be 2-car garage homes, all of them?
Yes.
On the single family homes, what percentage would you say would be brick or stone beside, depending on the choice?
It would be as an upgrade, and so it would be a choice. And I would say it would be fair to say maybe 20%. I think what I would offer, Mr. Mayor, is that if the concern is on the facade, I think a good compromise is to maybe in these other commitments that we made, maybe that we do, we commit to like 50% of the front elevation would be brick or stone accents, and that sometimes makes the upgrade to do the rest of it a little bit easier.
And how much would the townhouses sell for?
I would say they're going to start in today's dollars in the high mid 260s, 270s in today's dollars. I can't project out going forward. And I know that y'all know I can't commit to those prices. I'm not putting asterisks to it. I'm telling you real stories, but situation like Hollywood, they try to require per house minimum price. You can't do that. Fair housing won't let you do that. That's super illegal and super discriminatory. But I understand that yes, that we all want to have a good quality development. So.
Any other questions? Councilman Engel, do you have any questions?
I guess the only question I've got for you, I know the price point is increasing, but I understand the cost of building materials has increased tremendously. Are we, I guess essentially what I'm looking for, are we increasing in quality, or are we simply having increases because of the drastic increase in building materials? I know, I mean, last year, year and a half ago, if you're building a $240,000 house, you're building that same house now for $300,000. And not necessarily a nicer house, just the same house, because the cost to you guys is extreme now.
That's correct, yeah, we saw that play out at Arbordale. That is correct, but you're assuring your quality by your lot size and your exterior materials that we're speaking of today, and the commitments on like the 2-car garage and whatnot. And if it means anything, we will certainly won't be working with two homes. We've got some couple of quality builders that we'd like to bring to the area.
Can you say what builders you're working with?
I'm working with Madaming Homes. Yeah, we're very excited about the opportunity here. We're also working with Stanley Martin. They used to be Essex. A lot of consolidation, so a lot of names are changing as we speak now. But those are the two that we're most speaking with right now.
I appreciate all the changes you've done, the work you've tried to, kind of what we're looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
My concern is we're building a lot of houses around Stanley, not just about our infrastructure, how we're gonna handle all these people.
Well, we'll probably have to do some upgrades. We've talked to Public Works, and probably have to do some upgrades to water and sewer, and of course, we'll pay for that. And then that'll.
Is that in case of a new pump station?
Yeah, either upgrading or a new one. They're still working calculations on that, but there'll be something need to be, will have to be done there. And of course, we'll pay for that. It belongs to the city. And I know 135 sounds like a lot, but in the scheme of things with this road network, I wouldn't want to propose anything that was too out of extraordinary large. And we need the downtown folks really want to have some people, retail follows rooftops. You have to have rooftops. So I would think this is smart growth. It's not cramming into the many as we can get for the sake of just doing it. It's going through the process. We went through the process of planning. It's a good, to me, this is a classic give and take. Trying to get what's best for everybody involved. We certainly don't want to come in where we're not going to.
I don't want you to feel that way.
Not at all, not at all, not at all. And but it's a fine balance. I mean, y'all need to grow. If you're not growing, die. Gotta do it in a smart way. I understand that.
Any other questions from the council?
Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Well, item 4 is the public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing regarding the zoning of parcel 224-745 and was an RA for the purpose of constructing single family townhome units?
We'll make that.
No second. All in favor? Is there any comments from the public regarding this public hearing? So
I have a question. Is there a way for us for the town of Stanley to determine how much is rental? I live next door to this property that they're proposing. And is there a way for us to keep the rental business out of that neighborhood?
question. Andrew Jenkins?
I don't know how to answer that question. What the laws are, we have to consult with legal staff. I'm not sure.
Would that not deal with, would that not deal with an HOA? If they have an HOA manage the neighborhood and that would go into the HOA bylaws, whether you can rent or not?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am.
Yes, please.
So build to rent is the hottest thing in residential right now. Build to rent is a category that is growing exponentially in our business for a lot of reasons. Millennials, for whatever reason, have not wanted to buy. They don't like to do yard work. The build to rent communities, usually the yard work is all done. I'm doing a 90-unit one in Belmont behind the Harris Teeter. Shelley was concerned about it at first. American Homes for Rent, second largest one in the country. Turns out when it's done, that community will look as good or better than with homeowners association down the road because it's all uniformly maintained. They even changed the air filters out. So I'm going to say on one side of the fence, is it government's place to tell me how to pay for the roof over my head? That's a great debate. Well, we won't answer here. Is it a concern with folks that live nearby? It is, because of the stigmas attached to rentals, rightly or wrongly, over the years. It's certainly different now than it was, but I respect your opinion. How I've dealt with this in the past is in a case like this, we would agree on the rezoning, to tattoo it or find a way to memorialize it, that the developer would not do it as a build and rent community. And then they go false to the HOA, to your point. Usually that's no more than 20% units will be rentals.
I do know and I am a builder, everybody knows that now. What I've seen in the past in price points of the houses that he is proposing is the crime, the rental becomes where the houses aren't taken care of. It's more of an eyesore than anything. And that concerns me. I have 2 young daughters. I'm on the other side of the right of way from it, from the Pyro right of way, from the neighborhood that they're proposing. So just asking if the council would look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, sure, start looking at that. That's a valid concern. Any other comments from the public? Any comments or questions from the council regarding this public hearing?
Check on like the new ones you mentioned about the real property, because I was concerned about the townhouses. I'm on that side. And I don't want any more rental property on that side of town, for any side of town. We have community and rental properties, but he said they will built to sale, not to rent the townhouses. So that's the question I had for him earlier, so maybe he can, investigate that some more about the.
How's the rest of the council feel?
I'm fine, we can delay till next month.
How about you, Councilmember Ingold? Do you need more time, or are you ready to make a decision?
I could use a little more time. I'm not, I don't feel that great about a lot of rental property. I'll put it out there and be honest with you. Like, when the economy goes, that's gonna be the first thing to go. We're not always gonna live like this economy wise. So I think it's a valid concern that we need to take into consideration. And I would also like to see if there are any more public comments that come in via email. I don't think there's been but a couple, right?
Yeah, there were just 2.
Yeah, just a couple. So I would like to take that in consideration as well and just use a little more time to talk to you guys, and I mean potentially even the builder as well, or the developer.
Remember, I was just committing to not be a rental. So if you don't want to, we're deferring the vote because I think about that, I'm committing that it won't be.
So Mr. Olson's committed not to build it as a rental community. Does council still need more time? Okay, so I was going to make a motion to close public comments. Councilman Ingold, do you want to leave it open as far as the public comments to accept those?
Yes, sir.
Council fine with that? So do I have a motion to recess the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second? All in favor? We'll recess it till the next meeting on May 3rd, I believe. Is that correct? Move on to item B, this is approval of the steering committee for the Stanley pedestrian bicycle plan. Manager Jenkins, I'll refer to you on this.
Mayor, as part of the grant that we received for a future walkability rider plan for pedestrians and a bicycle plan, We received that funding through the DOT transportation line. And as part of that process, we're required to put together a panel, community players to for stakeholders to participate in that. There's a list that I provided with the mayor that various people would need to have appointed. I don't necessarily think it has to be an official appointment, but not by the council. If it's okay, we'll just try to put that panel together and send it out to the council. We do need, they did request that someone from the elected board be a part of that, so if anyone has any interest, let me know. And the other appointments, we'll just try to get the best of the various sectors that they want to participate in.
How soon do you need to know that by?
As soon as possible. We had our first kickoff meeting with them, and they've already had a follow-up email. Because before they can do their first stakeholder meeting, we have to have that kind of put together.
Any questions from any Jenkins? Not move on to item C. Approval of budget amendments. Item 1, transfer of funds from the fund balance to water and sewer budget expense related to the replacement of 5 hydrants throughout the town. Have a motion to approve this budget amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Item 2, is the transfer of funds in the fund balance to the water and sewer budget expenses related to repairs to the pump station at Buckeye. Do I have a motion to approve this amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second.
further discussion? All in favor? Item 5, citizens' comments. Any comments from citizens at this time? I believe so. How you doing tonight, Ms. Burrell?
My name's Jerry Burrell, and I moved on money, and 407 South Bucket Street.
Thank you.
I didn't know I was gonna speak tonight, I rushed over here from the doctor's office, so, but I'm not building anything. The only thing I have is I'm having water problems. I just had dry flow to come out, and I was shocked. Under my house is water. And they priced me at $4,300 to do the drain, the pump, to get the water out one day. Every time it rains, I get water. The gully, I don't know if it's a town's gully or the people's gully. My gully I have is mine till y'all need it. And then I'm gonna give you a hell of a time getting it. Pardon me, don't tell my kids I said that. But anyhow, no. Somebody needs to come down and walk with me through that area and look at it. We have,
Right.
but it's worse.
It's got worse as we look at it.
It's worse. It comes from in front of the Thompson Street there.
Yep.
The gully is not a gully. And they fill it up with limbs, leaves, everything. Tony wasn't able to come tonight. She's been here too. And I'm not complaining, I'm concerned. That's what he gave me. So I said, I complain all the time. He said, no, you don't, you're concerned. But anyhow, I just want somebody to come down and check that out to see if I clean it out, where it will run down to the Moore Street and come in. And right now, I get it where all that's not cleaned out from the sidewalk up on the main area. It comes from town, comes down and covers my front. My driveway is breaking up because it gets covered with water. And down at the end of the street, the guy next to me, is there any people from the north here? You don't tell him nothing, especially from a female. It stopped up, and it's a mosquito bed, and it's not going up the road. So I get it in the front, I get it in the back. I just need somebody to come down and talk with me and let's look at it. It's what I want. And, two, there's a house on Wall Street that's just got to be looked at. It's got to be looked at.
What is the address of that house?
I have no idea, it is the end of Moore Street.
There's two out there, isn't there?
There's two houses there. There's, when you turn, you see, say you go down by the police station, and you have to turn left and come down to
Right.
my road. Okay, the first road will be Moore Street,
Right.
and when you get there, you turn left. And there's a yellow house, a white house, and then two houses sitting there. And I don't know if it's a car lot, or if they just store old cars, or if they just work on them at night till 12 o'clock, or whatever. I mean, that's all I hear is beating at night, and I'm thinking, I don't like getting old. But anyhow,
Familiar with that house?
Yes, yes, I think it's the same one that we've had.
it is, you can stand in Tony's front yard and just look, it's covered, the roof is covered with plastic, which is half of it's coming off. They tore siding off the side, and it's, I don't know if anybody lives in it, if they do, I don't know how. And there's cars everywhere. When we first moved to Stanley, I've been here 50 years, y'all, I can't believe it. But the January 1st, I was here 50 years. Well, we had an old Thunderbird, when we moved here, pulled it upside the carport, didn't have a tag on it. And they came straight down and said that car cannot be parked there, you have to move it. And my husband said, well, I'm taking it to the shop tomorrow, they're going, we're having it restored. And they said, move it. Well, I wish you'd see what was up from me. Do we still have the same meetings? I mean, not meetings, but same rules that we did back then?
Mayor, I'll be glad to ask our police chief and our public works director and any other staff that can join us, and we'll make time to come down there and take a look at those issues for you.
Will you please?
See what we.
Please. I mean, I live in a neighborhood. I just got the trucks quit going up to the old Gaston County dock. I've been nice about that.
Director Rosemary, is there anything we can do? I know we looked over about the water situation.
We can come out there and take a look again. She said it's changed. We can at least look and see what kind of avenues we can. The address she's talking about on the home is 111 more. That's the address you were asking. Pretty sure it's 111 more.
It's at the very end. You got to stop where you run through.
Okay.
So,
And
Can we look into that, see what we can do about that?
yes, sir, we'll report back to the council on the findings of the water issue and the homes that are with the issues of the vehicles.
do I sell my house or sell my car? I have a stick on my house. And I said, no, I go to town meeting.
We'll get that scheduled as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Rabbit. Yeah, this is comments this time. Now we'll move on to department reports. Fund enforcement provided. Director Haney, anything you wish to add?
Not unless you have any questions for me.
Questions, Director Haney? Public Works, Director Roseberry.
Yes, does you have any questions?
Have you already seeded, or you started to kill the grass? How
We
about-
got all the grass, the time has elapsed, so this week is when we'll do the seeding this week. By the end of this week, we'll have it done the seeding.
It's about the fall, it's gonna be looking very lush and green,
I
correct?
hope so, it's good.
All right.
I hope, it's a bad area. But that's the plan.
Not that bad, come on. All right, recreation, Director Deasy? No, sir. Our report's been provided. Any questions for Director Williams? Chief Williams. And police report, any questions for Chief Summon? Have anything to wish to add?
All right.
We'll move on to manager report.
Mayor, the only information I had this evening was to present the budget information that we have completed for the draft budget. If you would entertain me to talk about that in just a few minutes, I'll be glad to make that presentation.
Right, thank
pulled out already?
Give me
Is
just,
it more or it's-
it's a PowerPoint presentation.
it's not a dress? Is that what I see? No.
Yeah. I think we'll look at. Mary, yes. Talk about
Oh,
just a second.
okay, it's in your email?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Next slide. One of the things I wanted to speak to just real briefly before we go into the actual numbers or the budget process itself is, to talk about the employees and the city council support, the community support over the past year and a half. Everybody has experienced a change in how they operate, how they provide services to their community. We all had to make adjustments very quickly, and I just want to speak to a few of those matters or items. If you go to the next slide, please. Just to name a few of those things, our calls for service to our police department and exposure risk to our fire and police when answering calls for service and related calls, the increased risk to employees of the town who had to continue to do their job through COVID because they were deemed essential employees. Most functions that the town continued to provide and did so throughout COVID were not an optional type of service. Increased demand on services related to planning and zoning and code enforcement. Not only our planning and zoning and the amount of applications that we process, but also the amount of code enforcement complaints, just like the lady spoke to a while ago. We've seen a huge uptick in those, and we tried to address as many as we can, and we've even asked for the assistance of COG to help us with some of those. We've had to operate with a short staff because we had employees who were out either in quarantine as many others did. And that's one thing when you're short staffed in the office, but when you're out there having to provide the services that the public works department provides and our emergency services, that's a different story. We canceled many of our major town events normally provided to our citizens, and I was just proud of how our staff pulled together, and if during those times when they were not providing those events that we normally prepare for, they were finding ways to help the other departments and pull together and still try to do some things for our community. With the strong support of our council and our community, we were able to do a lot of things that I didn't think we would be able to do. Several of those things included the Recreation, Fire, and Public Works Department hosted a Santa visit where they got very creative and actually sent the gifts down the tube to the kids as they came by, and I guess received some kind of goodie bag. And we did meals for the seniors. And the police department prepared goodie bags and meals and hand delivered those to our senior citizens in lieu of having an annual dinner that we did and the breakfast that we normally did. Also, we did a drive-through carnival. Not we, but these in the public works department put together a drive-through carnival that was a huge hit among the citizens of Stanley. One of the things that I was really proud to see is the corporate leadership and help from one of our corporate citizens, S.C. Johnson Company, who contacted me immediately following the COVID-19 restrictions and said, "Hey, how can we help your community?" And so at the time, we had just gone into a state of restrictions and so forth, and so we didn't really know how we were going to be impacted the most. But the programs that we came up with were help our citizens with their water and sewer bills, and the other one was help citizens with groceries. We handled internally those with the water bill issues, and Mr. Deason personally made an appearance at the grocery store discreetly behind those in need for groceries, and would pay the bill behind them. And we see that and turn that information in. And then right on the heels of that grant, they contacted us again at Christmas time and said, hey, how can we help at Christmas? And donated another $20,000 to our community. And we were able to, Decent and his group were able to deliver tons of gifts to the needy who otherwise would not have had a Christmas. So before I start talking about numbers, I think it's important for the council and the community to know that some of the things that have been going on and our staff, our department heads and our leadership and the support of our council, we are all about trying to find ways that we can better serve our community and make improvements where we can make improvements. And we just discussed a lot of those things in a recent staff meeting to kind of try to come back together after the restrictions have lightened up some of COVID. The highlights of the proposed budget that I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight. The number one item on there is investment in the town's greatest asset, the employees who work for us do the enhancement of our pay plan. I had mentioned this back in December. We had talked about in length, the issues that we've been having and how the local municipalities in Gaston County and just the market in general, it's a constant struggle to keep good employees. And so we've seen a lot of turnover, and that turnover costs the town a lot of money. So what we have put together is a enhanced pay plan that I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about, and I hope the council will strongly consider that. And also the investment in our town assets and equipment. If you'll recall, last year we basically asked our department heads, bring us a budget that's flat. We don't know what we're going to be up against. We were very concerned about the sales tax revenues and what those are going to look like. We felt like we would be okay on the property tax side, but we didn't know for sure. And so I didn't hear one word from my department heads when they were asked to do that. And so no capital, no vehicles, anything in last year's budget. So you're going to see some of those things start to come back in the request in this year's budget. We want to, as I mentioned earlier, try to find ways to provide a better service to our community and also to do so without proposing increases in fees or taxes. And I've been very proud of the fact that this council and our department heads have helped maintain our tax level where it is, even through the times when we didn't have a lot of tax base at all. That was tough. That little bit of few cents over some of our other local communities saw an increase much higher in their tax base over those years when we did not. And so a lot of you were here during those times and know how tough those years were when we didn't have tax base. That's changing, and we see that just like tonight with all the developer attention that our community is getting. And then the staff assessment of current services with an overall goal of improving those services and governance. The new proposed employee pay plan, when you get your proposed budget, you're going to see 3 areas of potential pay raises. One of those areas will be a cost of living increase. The next area of that pay plan will be longevity, which is something that we have not had in the past. And I'll be going into detail how we propose that best work. And keep in mind, our ultimate goal with the longevity plan is to try to keep the employees that are here 1 and 2 years and 3 and 4 years, an incentive to stay another 2 years and another 2 years as those numbers increase the longer they stay with the town. It's interesting because longevity used to be a very popular type of pay plan, and then for whatever reason, it went away over the years. And so we're starting to see a lot of the community bring it back, and then that makes us at a less competitive advantage when we're trying to recruit employees. That's the second one. The third one is a merit increase. What you'll see is a small percentage of COLA, and then the longevity, and then the third part of the plan will be the merit pay. I met with the staff. We've come up with some evaluation forms that we still have to tweak, but we want to make that process as fair as possible by frequently evaluating our employees and them having set goals and objectives throughout the year, and even some special projects that we want to see maybe them doing that during that fiscal year. So that last one is up to the employee. If they want to be able to get part of that merit pay, they have to work for it.
Madam President, I'd like to go back to the slide. Maybe on the first one, the annual cost of living raises for all employees. Is that going to be tied to CPI, capped at a certain rate, or?
If that would be what I have asked council to do in my pay plan, and that's certainly y'all's discretion, is commit, once we agree to this proposed pay plan, is to commit to a certain level of funding that, because if we, yes, you can tie it to whatever you like, but I'm gonna ask that we commit to a certain minimum level if we can, because if you don't try to stay with that pay plan and be consistent with it over a period of time, I think we'll see it defeat the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish. But yeah, you can certainly tie it would be the council's discretion on any of the raises. But there'll be a lot more detail provided about that when I send you the budget. Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, the cost of living, if you see right now, the cost of living is more this year than it was in previous years. Not so much the case every year, but that can definitely be adjusted to help tie in with the current situation. One of the things we did in our meeting was talk about, we want to tie in a mission, vision, and our value statement with what we do every day in the community. And we've got a commitment from all of our department heads to help do that. We want to find ways to say yes to people. Now, we can't always say yes to people, and nor can any other business. But a lot of times it's how you say it. But I truly feel like we're going to have a commitment from our employees to try to say yes to people and try to help people anytime we have the opportunity. We've always been that kind of community, and we want to reinforce that. But one thing I want to mention about that, we need, if there's any of those items that you want to see incorporated, whether it be certain values or certain, and this extends to the public as well, we want to hear from them. Now, we want to know what is important to you, what do you think should be important to the community? So we're asking for input on that. Okay, the next one. The next one of the other budget highlights you're going to see in this year's budget is we're taking a strong look at working with enterprise leasing. A lot of the municipalities have done this. You had a presentation before you. I'm not asking you to fully understand what you saw that night because it's a lot of information, but I'm going to give you a practical example of how it's helping in this year's budget if we approve it as requested. For example, this year's budget will contain $50,000, and that will allow us to replace 7 vehicles in our fleet. Normally, you would have to budget the cost of the new vehicle times 7 and put that in each individual department. For example, the police department in their budget this year had a request for 3 vehicles, which included $136,000. What this does is it allows the town cash flow, and you're not required to have to put that kind of capital out there every year. And the program works really well because what it does is it pays the old vehicles out. They take those vehicles and sell them. If there's equity in them, it gets back into the plan. If there's not, then you don't. And then that equity goes towards the purchase of new vehicles. there's a very strong market right now for the type of vehicles that Greg drives in a truck, or other employees drive an SUV. And so those can be rotated out in 2 or 3 years, and we can make money off of that process. It's hard for us, we talk about what's the advantages and disadvantages of doing that in-house versus using a company like Enterprise. Logistically, we just can't seem to figure out the best way to do that if we try to do it internally. And one of the areas we didn't recommend is to include the maintenance part of their maintenance part. We want to continue to be allowed to use the vendors we choose to use locally and without any red tape to get a vehicle repaired. We don't want someone telling us exactly who we have to use and how long it's going to be before we can get into having vehicles repaired. So I think we find this program to be beneficial. The revenue projections for this year, that number that I have in this PowerPoint actually is the wrong number. It's supposed to be 1,850,000. And if I have a chart that I'll show at a later time, but we've seen our tax base grow from 2019 to 20 to 20 to 21, and now another fairly large increase in this year's ad valorem tax revenue, and that's based on not just new development growth like we've seen discussed this evening, but also the fact that there's a lot of citizens doing upgrades, remodels, new pools, that kind of thing. So that's continuing to drive those dollars as well. Our sales tax revenues, that number is a little low from what we anticipate. We just received the leads projection of what actually happened with the sales tax and what they project to happen with the sales tax this coming year. Those numbers are very encouraging for anybody across the state and any businesses that we're going to continue to see those numbers do well. I don't think that's an indication of how North Carolina is doing as a whole revenue wise. Just wanted to touch on a few things. I've covered most of the items that are under administration. Public Works Department, the main slide there, the next slide is something that the council's already approved, and that is the radio read meters, the AMI read meters. We have till the 16th of this month, we'll be receiving requests for proposals on that. Once that date arrives, we will then seek the appropriate financing for those meters, and hopefully that's going to be a very positive program. We're one of the only, if not the only town left in Gaston County that have not switched to automatic read meters. So that's one of the positive areas in the Public Works Department. In the Recreation Department, I'm pretty well covered, to bringing back all the programs that we didn't get to have last year. The ball program, everybody's very enthusiastic about that. I think your enrollment's up and things are looking great there. And also some discussion about our July 4th fireworks and the rest of the events that we normally do as a community that we did not do last year.
Andrew, one thing I'd like to see this summer, if we could, most other towns do just like a summer concert series, maybe not do a full scale, just start off with maybe 3 events, see how it goes, and we can expand on that next year.
Yes, sir.
So maybe we could efficiently research, see what the cost of those will be, maybe add those into the budget.
Yes, sir. Would it be okay, is it the direction of the council, if the cost lies within a certain area, for us to go ahead and maybe try to pursue booking some of those bands, because the problem being, of course, it's going to be busier than ever, and I don't know how long we could wait before we were able to book those bands if we choose to do that.
I think we owe that to the town at least. I mean, I think it's very well received.
We'll go ahead and include that in the budget, and also start reaching out to see if we can get some prices, and I'll be glad to email those to you as we get those put together. Okay. And the fire department, Chief Withers included, a couple changes in his budget this year. One is, a 2-year and a 5-year plan, Chief, I believe that's correct, on staffing. And also, if I read, and I apologize, I meant to try to confirm this with you today, but the SAFER grant, we need to add that into the budget if you choose to pursue that this year, or would that be in next year's budget? How would that work? I mean, is the SAFER grant for equipment or is that for staff?
For staffing, sir.
Okay.
And part of that 5-year plan is planned, or year 3 was to provide full-time staffing. That may be a conversation at a later point in time, but in order for us to look at full-time staffing, there are grants out there to be able to supplement that full-timer, that being the SAFER grant. So that's what I would need permission to apply for it this year, with the idea that it would be the fiscal year for next year.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I want to make sure I didn't speak on that. And there's another slide behind that one, please. The second part of the fire department's change in their budget this year is a change in the type of insurance that we provide to firefighters. $10,000 for off-duty, $20,000 for on-duty accidents, and this is also referred to as gap insurance. Gap insurance means, for example, you correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but if you're fighting a fire in Stanley as a Stanley firefighter part-time and you were injured, this would make up for your salary at your regular fire department. So you were not out of basically unemployed in your full-time work.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. And then the last part of that's the critical illness, which is heart attack, stroke, and cancer policy for the part-time firefighters. The last part of the fire department's request this year is to do some upgrades to the building, to the bathroom, flooring, new station sign, repairs to the parking lot, and HVAC unit, and also garage door improvements, their motors. I know it's something that repair a little bit along the way, about every year for them. The police department, there was 4 main points Chief Stanley wanted to talk about in his budget priorities. Patrol officer positions, which are 2, which are included in an additional staffing funding for new police department building. That is not actually for construction costs, but to look at the potential of a new facility down the road. You have to start with, of course, having someone develop those plans, or take a look at what options you have. The new vehicles that he's requested, and also, as I've already mentioned, the pay plan changes. I know that's a little hard to see, but that basically just shows the overall request and revenues on the general government side of the budget. And the next page is just a continuation of that. On the water sewer side of the budget, it's about 4.3 million. If you can back up one slide, I'm going to get that number. I'm sorry, but I can't read on there. Could you tell me what that's on the first total of the budget?
3,742,000.
And one of the things that's in the water sewer side of the budget that I meant to mention that I haven't is we have to budget this, like if you recall where we've done this before with vehicles and fire trucks and those type of things. We have to budget the full cost of the meter improvements. And so we'll have $1 million in this side, and there'll be $1 million on the revenue side, reflecting what the financial institution would fund to pay for the meters when they were installed. That completes my presentation, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. I will be providing the clerk with the draft of our proposed budget and also budget message, along with a copy of that we will post online for anyone who would like to see those numbers. And then the council If you wish to hold some work sessions, I would respectfully ask that you try to schedule those as soon as your schedules permit, so we can get those on the calendar. We have the whole month of, the remainder of April, whole month of May to discuss the budget. And then we normally have the budget ordinance and final draft for adoption at our June meeting, the first year.
I would like to hold budget workshops, this convenient for council. How can we group those together, manager? So I'm there all night, and I don't know, break out 5 or 6 workshops.
Mayor, we can make those as, we could speed that process up and do 1 or 2 or 3, whatever best, the council wants to do. I will say this, that the budget you have before you this evening, there are no cuts, there have been no cuts made to that budget by me at this point. And I stated my reasons earlier for that, but, so soon we can get that budget in your hands, and I think you normally would want to try to group public safety tonight and maybe general government and streets and that, one night, and then maybe do water and sewer, or you could break it into 2 work sessions, however the council wants to do it.
We could do 2.
There's no reason to drag it out.
I mean, I'd be willing to stay a little longer, just go ahead. Have it done.
We will already be here at our May meeting. If you would like to extend that meeting now, we'll keep the agenda short for the May meeting if we can, as short as we can. And then we could just recess that meeting and go into a budget work session.
Everybody follow that? Councilman Ingo, are you available? May
Yes.
3rd, after that,
I will be there.
stay late.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I don't believe we heard you, Councilman Ingo.
Oh, yes, sir. I will be there on the May meeting, and I am available to stay after.
May 3rd, and then
Does any of the staff have any conflict with that? Major conflict?
so, which one do we want to do May 3rd? Police, fire, and
We can do police.
probably rec, start with rec, because the police is really not that complicated, we can start with rec and then do police and fire.
I can save you some time on the rec budget, mayor, because he submitted a pretty much flat budget.
Okay, so it's really not
Didn't
needed.
ask for anything capitalized or anything.
Okay.
So we could do administration along with public safety. That would be a lot to cover.
Okay,
And streets. Then,
so police, fire, and streets, May 3rd.
and then, if we need to extend that out to another work session for water and sewer.
And then what about? How's the following, May 10th, following Monday? Does that work?
Not that you need me here, but I got, not that you need me here, but I can't be here all day.
Okay. I think we'll be fine.
I can all, I mean, we work real close on the numbers, so whatever, if there's any change, we can get together later and let those numbers in.
Councilman Ingo, how's the 10th work for you?
I can do the 10th as well.
Okay, perfect. So we can do the 10th, general government, water, sewer.
Streets. I think that'll work perfect, and that doesn't, that way we can go ahead and schedule these meetings, and, I don't think, Madam Clerk, too much to turn around and re-advertise this, since they're being announced publicly at this time.
Okay.
Those meetings will be, of course, public. And that, it's like we would any other meeting. Less than a second.
3rd and 10th. Madam Clerk, could you send us invitations out, please? Thank you. Anything else, Manager Jenkins?
No, sir. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing. I had a brief conversation about some potential funding options that are going to become available through the federal government. One of those was a congressional type request, and there used to be what they call earmark money, where you could request money to be attached to bills for certain projects that you're trying to do. I don't really know how that's going to work, or even if it is going to work, but you have to have the support of your delegation on how that moves forward. I would encourage you tomorrow, the Mount Cross Area Chamber is doing a All Things Washington, and they're going to have Leslie Mazingo along with staff members from all of our congressional delegation, and they'll be updating and answering a lot of questions about what's going on the federal side with funding and grants and how the CARES funding is going to operate and that kind of thing. So just wanted to throw that out there in case the council's available. That's going to be at immediately following our board meeting, so probably about 8:39. I'll confirm that time and date. It's been crazy days.
Move on to council reports and comments. Council have anything that wish to comment on the report?
I just have a question with the talk of all the new buildings, the homes and things wanting to come in. Now that Vilo is closed, has anyone heard anything? Is any type of grocery store, anything gonna come in, or are all of us pretty much shopping at Food Lion?
Measure, my understanding that, I would still pay the lease on that building, even though they're not occupied.
I can tell you that that's been the case before, that we've had large box buildings that lease, may be another year, maybe another 3 or 4 years, you don't know. But that does make it a little bit more, less attractive to negotiations between another grocery store. And those are strictly business decisions that, you know, politics don't really play a whole lot in, unfortunately. I can tell you that we feel like, and we feel very strongly that the town of Stanley has always supported 2 grocery stores, and that we absolutely now more than ever could support 2 grocery stores. And so we've, you know, extended that invitation to anyone who would be willing to talk to the current leaseholder about moving a store there. There was some interest. I don't want to mention names or who the interest was from, but as of today, there are no negotiations that have panned out. So we'll continue to monitor that. We did have someone who's been in the grocery store industry for a long time, who's staying in touch with us, and he's letting everyone know in that industry that we'd love to entertain someone living in the Stanley at that location or another location we can find.
Thank you. One thing I did want to add is that Councilmember Kaiser's resignation of his vacant seat in the 4th Ward. So if it suits the council, I'd like to open that up to any one of interest to submit a letter to Manager Jenkins from now until, say, noon on May 3rd. They were to me, and then we can review those letters. We can go into closed session, review those letters of interest, and look to make a decision at the next meeting. That's works for everybody.
So is just for clarification, is that going to be our process? Is a letter submittal, and then we will appoint?
That's correct. I'd like to open it up, put it on our town website, so anybody that has interest, submit that to Manager Jenkins. And then we'll take those letters, review them in closed session at the May meeting, make our decision, and then have Manager Jenkins inform whoever we pick.
And does her replacement have to come to from their ward, or is that at large at this point?
Doesn't have to, it could be at large, but I'd like it to represent the 4th Ward.
Okay.
But no, it could be anybody who's but
Mayor, I just have one point of clarification for staff, so we know. What I will do, if those come in, I will put those on file with clerk. Okay. We will not piecemeal those to the council. Okay. We will wait until we receive all applications, if there's more than one, And those will all be brought in to the council to consider all at one time. We won't email those out one at a time, but allow you to review them all at one time. We think, you know, in the process. If that's okay.
Yeah.
I got one more thing real quick. Manager, can I get that PowerPoint that you just went through? That's the only negative to being right here is I can't see it. So if I could just get that, that'd be great. Just one more thing, you guys. I think we're at a time right now that we got to be careful about our expansion of the town. I mean, we lost a big business, yet we still have builders wanting to come in and build houses and townhomes. Right now, the economy is great, and Stanley is a great place to be as far as a developer or a builder, because we are a bedroom community to Charlotte. So I guess I'm getting kind of weary at this point of builders and developers, because I mean, it's been every month we've had somebody new, somebody in looking to build in our town, and a lot of those builders are coming in and getting out, making their money and going. And I get it. Every speech we get is I'm not just here for a quick buck, or I'm not just here for a quick dollar. We'll support the town long term. I just think that's something that we really need to take into consideration from this point on, because we are going to run out of real estate as far as land goes. And once we make these decisions, if we commit to these buildings, that's what's going to be there forever.
And I will say, I think the Millwoods project on Green Road, I think would be a great development for the town. You know, we just need to discuss if we're making the investment in the town in water and sewer.
Mayor, along the same lines, if I may, Councilman Ingle, we're in the process right now of finalizing our land use plan, also our zoning ordinance with Central Line Council. I think it would be time well spent if we could get the council together at a brief, maybe just an hour or two work session sometime between now and the time we finalize those documents. And it would make it so much simpler for the developers as well as the council and also the staff on what they can expect and not to expect to be considered for development. I think it's safe to say that this council is not interested in our straight R8 tract home developments anymore. So those type of things need to be addressed in our ordinance, where when they pull that up on the internet, there's no R8 tract development option available in our ordinance. I think you would spend less time in the future dealing with the development, because it will continue to come. They will continue to apply as long as the ordinance allows for it. But now's a good time to change it if that's what we choose to do. And it sounds to me like from the council's past direction and from the public that you know, there's certain parts of that we need to take out. So I think it would be a great idea to try to do a development work session that doesn't have to be all day, doesn't have to be a half a day, just a few hours to talk about that, how we can go back to Central Line and ask them to make some sort of changes in that ordinance now. Okay.
Maybe it's out on the day, maybe everybody can think of the day. That'd be great. Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, I was wondering, you know, we took the gazebo down, and our plan is going to build another, right? So with the railroads are hold up. Have we got anywhere with that, or is it?
Yes, we have a couple of issues, and I am glad to report to the council too and to the public that week before last, I received a call from CSX regarding the crossing at West Dallas Road. That was, I think, another crossing in Mount Holly and some other communities as well. As far as I know, that was moving forward today. As planned.
It seems like it was fixed.
So it sounds like it's been repaired, and I'm glad that occurred. And thank Representative for his assistance with that. And also you were talking about there's been no progress regarding the gazebo issue, but the other issues with the signage at the city limits, we have taken the old signs down, so everybody knows when they're coming in Stanley right now. Those have been removed, and we have an easement that was supposed to have been prepared when those other easements were prepared with the other land matters that we handled. And when I called to get copies of those, they apologized and said that easement has not been completed. And so they were gonna get back down here and take care of that as soon as possible. So we're still waiting on that easement agreement. The landowner's been more than gracious and said he would sign it. So as soon as he signs that, we're gonna give the green flag to the company who's providing those signs. They'll all go at the same time. So they're ready to go. They're ready to go as soon as we can get that final easement document. The rest of the three locations, two of which were owned by the correct Mr. Craig's. He signed permits for both of those. I said, yes, please go ahead and move forward with that. And then we also had to move. There's some current signage there on Bird Road. We're working with a property owner on at the corner there of Brick Wall. And agreed to allow us to put that other sign up there. So there's a total of four signs instead of three that we took down.
Okay.
And you had talked, all right, we were talking about the crepe myrtles around where the Christmas tree is.
Yes.
And I had told you I think they're beautiful when they're blooming, but I did notice during the Christmas season, they do take away from the tree. You don't see it as well. So I don't know if there's anything else we can do around there. We can't do the gazebo. If we take the crepe myrtles down, I hate for it just to be all there.
Right, maybe we can take this down and replant. On this little.
But you don't want anything that's gonna take away from the tree, see it block the
I
tree.
love to take it down. I'm take it down and put something that's a little better conducive to the mall for the town.
Well, can we do that with the road? Can we get them out there and put something without really?
I think they would want us to restrict what type of tree we put there, of course, but I think you could go with something that's an evergreen that would fit, I think they fit. Okay.
Well, and also on the other side of, I guess that's, Chestnut, across from the new hardware, those crepe myrtles, I think would look nice. There's lights on them, but they don't work. And I asked Craig about it, he said it was the beautification committee.
Yeah, the beautification committee typically took care of those. Of course, the older beautification committee. Right now, we currently don't have power. The power that we give to that is actually up on the telephone pole about 30 feet. We can't get permission from the railroad to run the electrical underground because they own that.
Which location is that?
You're talking about the one right across from the hard, she's talking about right across from the hardware. There's 3 crepe myrtles with the,
You can't get permission from the CSA to get power.
yeah, we've got there. Yeah, it's not taking us over there.
Well, we probably, if you could just take them as lights and throw them away, and
Right.
they're,
Well, we were gonna do it last year, but, the couple of members of the beautification committee.
But they gave that up now. That's bottom line, they gave that up.
Well, they used to be.
Well, they just did.
Yeah, they just did. They just gave that up. They called about a month ago and told us to
Right.
take over, Pine Eagles, they're not doing that anymore. So, where they were, doing that yourself, paying for it, they're not doing anymore.
And I don't ever think watching this meeting that CSX, that they've been very gracious in
Yes.
working with us. It took a while. No, it took a while for us to get approval for the fencing, but they did sign a lease agreement with us on that. So I think if we, approach one of those other matters, I really, I don't know that a power issue would be that hard.
I don't think it would just be a little bit of timing.
And so we'll be glad to reach out about that, and we can always ask on the board, I don't know what we get, but they do operate in a small space.
and do you know what's going in that building beside the laundromat? I noticed that put, like wrought iron tables and chairs out there.
I saw that today. I do not know. I mean, there's been nothing permitted. There had been some preliminary discussions about a restaurant or some type of bar there but this has been pre-COVID. I don't know what the plans are. I haven't met with anybody and I haven't had anyone approach me about it. And so we'll keep on and see what develops. let you know.
And what about the building beside the Lutheran church? Have you talked to them lately?
We've spoken with them from time to time about different things. I think that
Yeah,
kind of put those projects, behind a little bit.
but they're still gonna pay it.
I think so, as far as I,
Yeah, that's how I heard this, still there in 10.
Okay. We're good.
I just think it's been a tough time for, especially a startup business. So, now they haven't said that, they didn't come and say that they would release you, but I was kind of, figured that might be what was delaying that project. I did get an update today from, Mr. Craig about the corner building, at, Plum Street. That's moving forward. Good, that project that I had mentioned earlier about the wine bar, I think it's coffee and wine bar. And that'll be also accessible from the street, Plum Street and that parking lot. Yeah, that they're going to be there. And there's some other buildings up there that are being leased for other stuff, but, they have to do our process to do that.
Careful, but just get somebody in there on the.
Yes, and I haven't given up on that, and I still think I truly believe that, as growth continues this way, that, it could be attractive to the right people if they're able to, secure the historical tax credits on the buildings. Without that, I don't know how you could ever do anything with the property, unless we solve some type of, you have to have the property owner participation in some type of community development demo grant or something like that. Then you're restricted as to what we can do with it. Has to be, manufacturing or tied to jobs. It can be housing or.
Any other questions for council? Not, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Second. All in favor?